Welcome! Yet another day of Bhagavad Gita Sadhana, although we have to acknowledge there won't be that many more. It is, when I'm recording this, November 1st, first day of November, and our sadhana started in December, so it's almost at its end. Well, I'm very glad you could join us today when we're still having practice, and we are continuing our look at Samatvam, the ability to connect with our true self and to be that self no matter what seems to arise in the world around us or within us. And speaking of the world around and within us, we're going to refer to a dichotomy today that's very prevalent in the Eastern philosophies I've studied, such as Tantra and Samkhya. We could say even Vedanta, perhaps, but there's the idea that there is part of us that does and part of us that watches the doing, that doesn't do. And that comes from the idea, for example, in Sankhya, that there are two major forces, beings, whatever we want to call them. In Tantra, they're personified as Shiva and Shakti, consciousness and energy. Shiva sits for thousands of years in meditation, and Shakti runs around doing things and getting things done. She's the energy that lets stuff happen. And in Samkhya, kind of the same thing. It said that our cosmos and the many other cosmoses around us are formed when these two universal principles, one of which is Purusha, which we could say is spirit, merges with Prakriti, which we can call nature, and that nature does and spirit observes, and they merge because in Tantra and Samkhya, consciousness or the spirit enjoys learning about itself through plays, the plays that happen in the material world. For example, in Vedanta, it's called lila, the idea that this world is a performance for the pleasure of a being. We could say specifically that being is Krishna, who is narrating a big part of the Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna has said before in the Gita that he's just allowing his being to unfold into existence. And there's a lot of talk about not doing anything, and yet everything gets done. And I'm going to refer to that today in our verse. If you have any of the Song of Your Soul books and would like to read along, please do, or you can listen. I'll be chapter 13, verse 30. Chapter 13, verse 30. Okay. So if you're chanting along, I'm taking a breath in. One who sees that all actions are performed by nature alone, and that the true self is actionless, that one alone verily sees. So the whole universe, and thus us as part of the universe, has part that does. Like it makes the leaves change. It makes the temperature drop precipitously from one day to the next. It makes the wind blow. And then there's a part of us that doesn't do. Like I can observe at my deepest level of being, I can observe these things happening. I can observe myself breathing. I can observe my heartbeat, and I'm not doing any of that. I'm just observing. I just am. And one of the things the Gita is trying to help Arjun, the main character who is full of doubt about what to do in this world, and us, is to realize that we encompass both of these. However, the nature of the true self is to simply be, not to do, to be, and to, through being, doing unfolds around us. It can be interesting because in this culture I'm in, it's do, do, do. And if you don't do, then you're a lazy so-and-so. And we often get so focused on the doing, we forget about the being. We think that through doing, our true self will unfold. And what the Bhagavad Gita says is through just being ourself, everything else occurs. So today, as you go through your life as an embodied being, hey, to any disembodied beings watching, welcome. I encourage you to really notice how you are when you're doing, like how you feel about yourself, the world, the cosmos when you're doing, and how you feel about yourself, the world, and the cosmos when you're being. If you are you being? Are you being? Or are you just doing? Something to consider. Um, Before I forget, let my usual self unfold into being, which is forgetfulness a lot. Um, Today's practice is dedicated to Thomas Hood, who wrote a great, in my opinion, poem called November, and to Art of Noise, who let it unfold into a musical and sound extravaganza. So if you have a chance and want to look at Art of Noise's November and listen to it, great. And just to celebrate this change that's happened. And also, I mentioned yesterday, the confluence of new moon, Samhain, Diwali. And if you want to join Kathy, who's leading a very special class on that tonight, November 1st, please see the link below. Or just join us for new classes that are starting next week. Doing to help you get to being. Consciously. Everything that we do can help us be. But how often do we lose ourselves in the doing and forget the being? My cat right now is doing something. He is trying to open the window to get out here with me. That's just the way he is. Let's practice. Going to balance poses are great for finding the not doing in the doing. I'm trying to practice the not sneezing. The not sneezing and the sneezing. Here we go. Switch sides. Very good. So we will have our 5 minutes of contemplation. And today I invite you to contemplate that even though your true self, within with the capital S, is beyond action, can you notice it unfolding in the various acts, either that you're doing or that are happening around you? For example, choosing to sit in contemplation for 5 minutes. Let's see what unfolds. Welcome back. How did that go? Hmm. Sometimes I like to use analogies because, especially as I read this, I'm like, haven't we kind of talked about this before? Isn't this just really close to something we've talked about before? So if you can see the mums here, you can think of a daisy if you're familiar with those. In the center, there's something. And you notice all these petals moving away from the center. Everything we experience in life is calling us away from the center of who we really are. Okay. So anytime we move away from the self, that's an experience. And we can look across and say, oh, there's an opposite experience, another petal on the other side. And look, it's just any way we move away from the self creates an opposite. And the idea is to get right back to that beautiful little center from which it all unfolds. I hope your day unfolds just as it should, and that it brings you opportunity to connect to your true self, and that we get to connect again soon. Until then,